Well, events, as they say, seem to be piling up on the world stage. We've had Ukraine, Russia. Now we're looking at Hamas, Israel. Uh, Taiwan is looking very tasty to China, who's had its eyes on it for decades. We're also seeing increasingly the impact of Iran on the world stage. We've thought about China, obviously, and Russia, but Iran seemed to disappear from the headlines somewhat. Well, they're back because it's pretty clear that Iran is the state sponsor of most of the terrorism in the Middle East, and perhaps behind Iran stands China. Uh, for this guy who spent his year in private equity doing investments where the world was much more certain, we were risking dollars, but we weren't risking lives. And with the Biden administration seemingly making one feckless bad move after another, I'm getting very concerned about where this is going. So I've asked my friend Brandon Weichert, who we all know, one of the really most interesting geopolitical strategists around. Brandon is working on a book. I'm not sure when it's published. We'll find out in a second about Iran. And as you may recollect, we talked with them a couple of months ago about China, and China's building bioweapons. And then I think, as I recollect, Brandon, you've also written an interesting book on space warfare, and that also seems to be coming into play. The world's become a very dangerous place. So, Brandon Weichert, what are we to make of events?
Well, you are correct that it is grim and getting grimmer. I keep telling people in the private sector for the last 6 months who are interested in political risk, or geopolitical risk. I keep telling them that this election is going to be the last chance, really, to stop the bleeding, as it were. I know everybody says that every election cycle, and certainly in my life, everybody says that every 4 years, but 2024 is really going to be the year that determines whether the United States remains as the global superpower or whether it becomes truly a declining power among many other great rising powers like China in particular. And so if we reelect Biden, the situation will worsen. It will likely deteriorate to the point that you have major conflicts erupting everywhere. Supply chains will be disrupted. Prices of pretty much every kind of commodity, especially oil, will skyrocket. And life for the ordinary American, the middle class American, who's already under so much, threat economically, will only get worse. And so that's the stake. If you want to avoid World War III, it really comes down to leadership. And it looks like Donald Trump's going to be the nominee. If he is, he will have my complete support, because I believe he will be the one to stop us from going into this nightmare scenario that you and I are talking about.
Well, I was on CPAC Now with Matt and Mercy Schlapp day before yesterday, and I boldly predicted that Republicans will win and Trump will be our next president. And then I left it at that.
It's certainly looking like he's going to be the nominee. Now, whether he can win or not, the general election, it's really going to be contingent, on what's going on in August to October.
I'll worry about the election integrity, but let's bring it back to our area of concern right now. For me, let's start the story in the Red Sea.
Yeah,
we've got now the Hamas atrocities in Israel, and then Israel's response been ongoing now for about 2.5 months, through almost 3 months, and that's proceeding at pace. But in the meantime, the Houthis in Yemen have been lobbing every sort of drone and missile at shipping in the Red Sea, and of course we know they're backed by Iran, and we haven't really responded. We've just let that happen. And as a consequence, I think 8 out of the 10 major shipping companies are no longer using the Suez Canal, Red Sea to transport. And the ships are being routed from the Indian Ocean down around Africa and then back up to the Mediterranean, towards the Mediterranean, towards Europe, which is massively more expensive than canal. So already right there, we're beginning to see an economic disruption.
Yep. Yep, which is the point. So in my book, The Shadow War, Iran's Quest for Supremacy, I get into, I predicted, by the way, this war. I finished writing the book in May of 2021. It was published this last summer. So I predicted everything that's happening now. And part of understanding the Iran threat, you have to understand how they use terrorism and terrorist organizations as proxies for power projection purposes. Obviously, in a straight up fight between the United States and the Islamic Republic of Iran, the United States military overcomes every time. But when Iran starts introducing these unconventional warfare methods, it becomes much more difficult for the United States to respond. And we're seeing this. We're seeing this now play out with the Houthis, because for the Biden administration to respond to either provocations from the Houthis or provocations possibly from Hezbollah or Hamas, that means they would have to use military force, which would mean they would be angering the true backers of these organizations, the Islamic Republic of Iran, a country, of course, that Biden, like his former boss, Obama, very badly wants to have an appeasement, accommodation, make a deal with Iran. And so all of these factors are playing into why the Biden administration is apparently getting pushed around by a band of miscreants who live in caves like the Houthis in Yemen, and why they won't deploy U.S. naval power.
We have actual caves in Yemen that's their hideout.
Yeah, they live in the desert, and I was sort of extrapolating from that. The point is that this is not a major threat.
Somebody joked. The joke is that if there's a terrorist organization that starts with the letter H, there's a good chance that Iran's backing it. I mean,
That's
we got
right.
The Houthis, we have Hamas. They're also backing Hezbollah.
Hezbollah's the big one, yeah.
You know, how do, but they're the state sponsor of all this, and I've heard that
Yes.
the Biden administration, of course, is filled, and the State Department in particular, is filled with Iran lovers. You know, we had the
Well, let's not forget the White House National Security Council. Right.
Well, tell me about the
No, it's
Security
exactly
Council. I also want to do
that.
Rob
Well,
Malley.
that's you mentioned Bob Malley. I mean, he was part of the NSC, and this is the primary national security policy group for the White House, and the not just Iran lovers. It's actual people on the payroll of Islamic Republic of Iran intelligence. And so you now have this situation arising where you have fellow travelers in the State Department, and then at the Pentagon and at the NSC, you've got actual agents, paid agents of Iran.
So they've graduated from lover to prostitute.
Right. That's right.